A northern Kentucky woman is recovering from a horrific attack tonight. She was beaten and had 3/4 of her scalp ripped away from her head. And deputies say it was all at the hands of her ex-boyfriend and his dog.
Police called it one of the most vicious attacks they had ever seen. An atrocity of rare brutality and cruelty. A pretty young single mother left grotesquely mutilated, beaten beyond recognition, and bleeding to death. 27-year-old Marilyn Stanley always wears a cap now so that nobody, including herself, can see the disfiguring scars of her ordeal. She used to have a full head of beautiful blonde hair and was living a happy life raising a young son on her own in Burlington, Kentucky. That is, until she met 31-year-old Zachary Gross. The two began casually seeing each other, and within months it had turned into a serious relationship. But Marilyn's mother, Linda, she didn't approve. There was something she didn't like about him, she said. She just didn't trust him. And sure enough, Marilyn says Zach would soon reveal himself to be jealous, possessive, and controlling. It started the first time with her getting put outside of his house. After that, she says he grew increasingly more violent and abusive. Soon, Zach was beating Marilyn on a regular, breaking her nose and giving her 2 black eyes, and on multiple occasions, choking her out. So Marilyn finally had enough. She was like, dude, you're going to kill me. I'm done. But Zach wasn't about to let Marilyn go without a fight, texting her multiple times just before the scalping. To my love, BFF, soulmate, lover, I hate that you're scared of me because you shouldn't have to be scared of the one you love. I am here to protect you and give you all that you need and everything you need and then some. I love you with all my heart. Zach had been trying to get Marilyn to talk for days, but when Marilyn refused, she says an obsessed Zach started stalking her, following her everywhere she went, and even getting a job at the same bookstore where she worked. Zach got so crazy over her rejection of him that he showed up at her door at 6 a.m. one day, and as soon as she opens the door, he punches her right in the face. And when Marilyn screamed for help, Zach got even crazier. He jumped on the roof of her car until it caved in. He got out his tire iron and smashed out her windshield and back window. So finally, Marilyn agrees to meet with Zach in a desperate attempt to calm him down. But the moment she walked through the door of his house in September 2015, she said she was greeted with a sucker punch to the face. She asked him what was that for, and he brought up pictures of her and her son taken at a park. It was because another guy had taken the pictures and posted and tagged her on Facebook, and she says Zach continued to beat her up. Marilyn turns her back to him so he would be punching her in the back of the head and not in the face. She somehow gets up and runs for the door, but he picks her up and she was like midair trying to throw herself down to the ground so she couldn't be dragged into his room. She feared she might not get out of that room alive, so she grabs a hold of the door frame. Zach continues to hit her. She managed to grab a knife she brought with her in case she had to defend herself against him. But before she could use it, she suddenly had a second attacker on top of her, Zach's pet pit bull, Capone. The dog bit off most of her right ear as Zach continued to beat her. During this horrific ordeal, Marilyn loses consciousness. The next thing she remembers, she's sitting up. The dog was gone and Zach was kneeling in front of her, kind of like smirking, and he said, "Look at you. You're bald. Now nobody's going to want you. Go look at yourself in the mirror." Marilyn said she was afraid to look. "I didn't look in the mirror when he told me to. I looked kind of in the direction of it, but past myself," said Marilyn. "I could just see blood and my hair was wet. And I didn't really think my scalp was completely gone because I don't remember it being cut off. I thought maybe some of my hair got maybe in splotches ripped out or something, but Zach wasn't finished with her yet. He kicks her in the stomach and tells her to lay on her side. He goes, "I'm going to break your ribs," and he stomped down on her ribs. They didn't break. So he stomped on her ribs again, and she hears them crack, but she didn't feel it at that point. This horror lasted for 2 hours. Marilyn says Zach Gross's brutal bloodlust was finally satisfied. He helped me up, wiped the blood off of my face, and told me, "It's okay, he's done. He's not going to hurt me anymore," she said. I asked him to call an ambulance, but he said no because they would take his dog. Instead, Marilyn says Zach gave her a t-shirt to cover her wounds and a hoodie to put over her head, then handed her a plastic shopping bag, which held the remains of her scalp. Instead of dropping her off at the hospital where she needed much needed medical attention, he dropped her off at her mom's house. It was there where Marilyn's attacker would add the ultimate insult to her injuries. He even asked if he could have a kiss when he dropped her off. All I felt was the weight of my ear, so I was propping it up in my hand, said Marilyn. It didn't feel like I had cracked ribs. It didn't feel like my scalp was gone. It didn't feel like my face was 3 times its size. She held the bag up when she came into the yard and said, "You know, my hair is in this bag," said Marilyn's mother, Linda. It wasn't until the EMTs got Marilyn to the hospital that her mother learned the horror that nearly half her daughter's scalp was in that bag. When somebody says that somebody was scalped, I mean, it's like unheard of this day and age, said Linda. Marilyn was barely conscious when she was told she'd been scalped alive. I remember the doctor coming in to tell me that my hair is never going to grow back, said Marilyn. Marilyn's life had hung in the balance as she underwent emergency surgery to repair a severed artery, as she would undergo several more operations before doctors finally succeeded in patching her back together with skin grafts from her leg. It was a miracle that Marilyn Stanley was still alive after being beaten, mauled by a pit bull, and scalped by the man she once called her boyfriend. But despite a mountain of evidence against him, Zach Gross denied he scalped and disfigured her, blaming the hideous crime on his pit bull. But thankfully the judge saw it differently, sentencing Zach Gross to the maximum 20 years behind bars, plus another 34 days for contempt of court. Zach has filed an appeal. His pit bull Capone was ordered by the judge to be euthanized,